This video was brought to you by Brilliant. Hungary's Viktor Orban has been making headlines a lot lately for his far-reaching foreign policy. In the first few months of this year, Orban repeatedly blocked an EU aid package for Ukraine. He delayed Sweden's NATO bid for a year and a half, and has been described by the media as both China's useful idiot and Putin's Trojan horse. Last week, Orban also flew to Florida to cozy up to Donald Trump, who's previously called Orban a very strong man and gushed about him again on Friday, calling him fantastic. So in this video, we'll take a look at Orban's foreign policy, why he's buddying up with Trump, Putin and Xi, and whether it's actually working for him.
Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos.
So let's start with some context. Since coming to power in 2010 and winning every election thereafter with roughly 50% of the vote, Orban has turned Hungary into what the European Parliament calls a hybrid regime of electoral autocracy. But as well as introducing conservative domestic policies designed to preserve what he sees as Hungarian culture, such as clamping down on LGBTQ+ rights and effectively banning asylum seekers, Orban has also increasingly tried to win the support of other nationalist leaders around the globe. Analysis by The Guardian newspaper suggested Orban spent more than 60 days last year travelling abroad for work, about the same as Macron or as many as Zelensky and Biden combined. Orban's travels took him to China, Turkey, Argentina, Qatar, Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, Serbia, Egypt and Georgia, basically packing his itinerary with global strongmen. So what actually is Orban's game, and why is he apparently speed dating the other global strongmen? Well, we've got a few main ideas. The first and most obvious being the legitimizing of his politics, the second being Orban's strategic aims within the EU, and the third, his quest for foreign investment. So first, authoritarianism. One reason strongmen leaders like Orban, Putin, Xi and Trump are so keen to club together is to legitimize their illiberal politics. By eroding democracy in their countries, they make it far more difficult for opposition leaders to contest them. But by keeping close to like-minded pals abroad, they can show that they're not alone on a global level, and paint other EU leaders as soppy, out-of-touch liberals. This means that governments like Orban's, which has just created a new Sovereignty Protection Office to crack down on dissent through foreign agents, i.e. people or institutions that receive foreign funding, can steadily cement their grip on power at home while still appearing to have allies abroad. Orban has also limited political freedom in other ways, transferring around 500 media outlets to a state-controlled foundation in 2018 as a matter of national strategic importance, and this week signing a new security deal with Beijing to have Chinese police stationed in the country. Second, Orban's foreign policy aims to increase his power within the EU. By creating a network of like-minded conservatives, both within Europe and further abroad, Orban hopes to push the EU further right, seeing a rightwards shift on both sides of the Atlantic as a political opportunity. If right-leaning Eurosceptic parties continue to do well on the continent, and Trump wins in America, Orban will be hoping to position himself as the prototype, and therefore leader, of this new right-wing populist movement. He sees Brussels changing tack towards immigration as an example of how the EU has come round to his way of thinking before. Finally, Orban's foreign policy hopes to also encourage foreign investment. Under his decade-long China-friendly policy, Orban has established a unique relationship with Beijing that's resulted in significant Chinese investment into Hungary. Hungary became the first EU country to join China's Belt and Road Initiative in 2015, and it's home to both Huawei's biggest logistical base outside of China and Chinese carmaker BYD's first planned European factory. In 2022, days after Hungary's foreign ministry declared that it fully respects Xi's One China policy, the Chinese battery maker CATL announced it would build a €7.3 billion battery plant in the Hungarian city of Debrecen, the largest industrial investment in Hungary's history. Thanks to his close ties with China, Orban beat Slovakian competition for the investment, with the Slovak finance minister saying in a now-deleted Facebook post, "Hungarians are going like rockets, and we look like poor relatives next to them." So how is this working for Orban? Well, economically, it's a mixed bag. Sure, he's got some much-needed foreign investment, but Hungary's economy is still in a bit of a crisis at the moment. Hungary's post-pandemic recovery has been hampered by persistently high inflation, which peaked above 25% in early 2023, and after returning to growth in the third quarter, Hungary's economy stagnated at the end of 2023. To make matters worse, the EU is still withholding over €6 billion of cohesion funds and over €10 billion from the Recovery and Resilience Fund, RRF, due to the government's alleged corruption and the misuse of EU funds. So, while courting support from Beijing might help develop Hungarian industry, it's still likely to achieve China's foreign policy aims well before Hungary's economic ones. Politically, it's also been a mixed bag. Orban's chumminess with other autocrats might play well with his base, but his fraternizing with Putin has incurred fury from other European leaders, and Biden accused Orban of, quote, looking for a dictatorship after his meeting with Trump. Similarly, while Orban has been ahead of the curve when it comes to stuff like migration, and he clearly feels vindicated by Ukraine's recent battlefield struggles, his apparent prescience hasn't actually helped him politically. In fact, other right-wingers in Europe have been conspicuously keen to distance themselves from Orban. Giorgia Meloni, for instance, has been one of Ukraine's staunchest supporters, and even though the two have had pretty similar views on immigration, Meloni has coordinated her anti-migration efforts not with Orban, but with more establishment European politicians. Similarly, the Sweden Democrats, another right-wing upstart that you might naturally expect to get on with Orban, are actually so anti-Orban because of his Ukraine policy that they threaten to quit the European Parliament grouping if Orban were to join. The point we're making is that, even though Europe is moving right, which you might expect to benefit Orban, his contrarian politics have apparently kept him as isolated as ever. Ultimately, the viability of Orban's contrarian foreign policy will probably depend on the upcoming European elections, including the European Parliament ones, and the US presidential election. If Trump wins and the European right continue to perform well at the ballot box, maybe Orban's international stock will improve, but thus far his foreign policy doesn't seem to be paying the dividends he might have been hoping for. A lot of the stuff we talk about at TLDR can seem pretty complicated, especially when we dive deep into economics and detailed data, which is why we use Brilliant.org to keep us sharp. Brilliant is where you learn by doing, with thousands of interactive lessons in maths, data analysis, programming, and AI. Brilliant is a learning platform designed to be uniquely effective. Their first principles approach helps you build understanding from the ground up, which is also how we structure TLDR videos. Each lesson is filled with hands-on problem solving that lets you play with concepts, a method proven to be 6 times more effective than just watching lectures. Plus, all content on Brilliant is crafted by an award-winning team of teachers, researchers, and professionals from MIT, Caltech, Duke, Microsoft, Google, and more. Brilliant helps build your critical thinking skills through problem solving, not memorizing. So, while you're building real knowledge on specific topics, you'll also be becoming a better thinker. Learning a little every day is one of the most important things you can do, both for personal and professional growth. Brilliant helps you build real knowledge in just minutes a day, with fun lessons you can do whenever you have time. It's the opposite of mindless scrolling. Brilliant recently launched a ton of new content in data, all of which uses real-world data to train you to see trends and make better informed decisions, something politicians could really learn from. Anyway, these are for learners of any level to start or continue learning data analysis, with a fully built-out suite of new content, from Bayes' theorem to multiple linear regression. And you can truly learn by doing, as you'll be working with real datasets from sources like Starbucks, Twitter, Spotify, and more. To try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days, click on the link in the description. You'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Thanks for watching, and thanks to Brilliant for their support of TLDR.